Good evening and welcome to the May 7th meeting for the Open Space Greenways Committee meeting. Could we please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, all of you have received the minutes of the April meeting. Are there any changes or deletions or additions to the minutes as submitted?
Make a motion to accept the minutes.
Second.
Motion approved. Are there any additions or changes, deletions to the agenda as submitted? If not, we'll then proceed. First item is the township. Carl, what's new?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. The update is the Tittle property on Ferry Road. We have a clean environmental report. I spoke to the township attorney, and he has indicated he expects a closing within the next 3 weeks. So when the next time we meet, we should have that property in hand and should be putting in final touches for a proposed trail, and I hope to have that done early this summer.
All right. In other words, 3 weeks from now, Mr. Sorty will have everything all taken care of, right?
That is correct.
Okay. And what I'll do is I'll keep Tom from TNT up to speed and tell him that it'll be, he'll start planning his workload, so when that's approved, he can start to work right away.
And I will let you know when the expected closing is, so we can then have them ready to go when it works for them. And I will call you when we have a closing that has occurred.
Very good. Thank you very much, Carl. Appreciate it. Bert is not here this evening, but she did submit her report, and I'll just go over it very briefly with you. I think most of you have a copy of it. I'll read it, so forgive me if I stumble through it. The March 24th signs of the spring Gibraltar Bay unit occurred. April 6th, they had the bird made simple at the GBU. April 27th, they had the island cleanup for the Grosse Ile Nature Land Conservancy properties. April 28th, they had the Earth Day. The deadline for the high school photo contest is May 9th. All photos are being submitted electronically. Upcoming events include the frog survey at the GBU, learn how to identify which frogs are calling, etc. On May 18th at the GBU, the Globe Citizen Science Program led by Jeff Bowman will occur, and Jeff is a Grosse Ile resident and teacher at the Shumanti Middle School in Gibraltar. On Sunday, May 19th, bird migrants on the move at the GBU learn how the birds that are passing through the returning to Michigan from southern lands. So that's the report from Bert. Kyle, do you have anything to report as far as the Recreation Department is concerned?
I do. I have almost too much to report. I think the biggest thing to put on for everyone to know about is a big event called Island Fest is coming up. That is May 30th, June 1st, and June 2nd. Island Fest is 100% sponsorship driven, so they're still looking for sponsorships for Island Fest. And then just a bunch of other spring and summer events are starting to come up. The golf course is now open, so that's going on right now. The Grosio Profile book was just sent out to all households on the island, so a lot of recreation events are in there if you have any questions about what's going on and different things to do. There's a last day of school pool party on June 13th from 1 to 4 p.m. At Water's Edge. Youth summer camps, street hockey cups, just so much happening in the recreation department. But again, the biggest thing is Island Fest coming up at the end of the month, and to look at your Grosio profiles for any events or things that are coming up.
Okay, thank you very much, Kyle. What about the beautification committee, Pam?
Okay, and I was just going to add to Kyle's report, the Furchies are in the move agenda right now, and we found some bocce ball container and donated it to the recreation department. So if there's somebody who'd like to have a little Italian flavor in sport outside, there's a bocce ball donated. With the beautification committee, we met Wednesday. We meet the first Wednesday of the month here. And to report is that we have placed 6 recycling bins spread out around the island, and it's for people that might have drinking bottled water or something that could be recycled rather than put in a trash container. We have 6 recycling bins located, and they will be picked up and taken to the recycling center. We also are going to add some evergreens to the back end of the sign that's at the entrance there to Grow Road. It's a Navy officer saluting. And we've planted petunias, red, white, and blue patriotic petunias in front of the sign, but we're going to be placing some evergreens at the back side of the sign just to give a little more nature there. And we decided we liked, and people like, the zinnias with all the color they add to the 4 corners. So 3 of the 4 corners that we shepherd, the beautification committee, the garden club, has the southeast corner. And we're going to plant zinnias there in time for the Island Fest, so there'll be a colorful entrance or at 4 corners. And that's it.
Okay, thank you very much, Pam. As far as the BPAC, Dan, could you?
Sure. We've got a couple things going on. Number one, the BPAC committee met with the Grosio residents in the 4 Corners area to the Free Bridge, and we discussed 4 alternate routes that we came up with to connect with the Free Bridge, which would then go to Jefferson Avenue. 2 of the routes that are being focused on right now are the south side of Grosio Parkway from Meridian to the Free Bridge, and the other route is proposed Bellevue to West River to the Free Bridge. At this time, they're both under review. The other thing is Bike to School Day is tomorrow. Be careful. There's going to be more students out on the bike paths riding to school. Also, summer's coming in. There's going to be more children and young adults out on their bikes. That's about all I have right now.
Okay, thank you. And I left the best for last. Linda, could you tell us what's going on with the school activities?
I would love to. So, for Key Club, we were very happy to participate in Island Cleanup this year. It turned out really well. Right now, for Environmental Awareness Club, we're in the process of electing someone to fulfill my position and to take over as president of the club, because Emily Wash and I will both be graduating at the end of this month.
Well, congratulations.
Congratulations.
Thank you. So this very well may be my last meeting. I'm not positive of that yet. I may come next month. I have to talk to Emily and see.
We'll have one more meeting, and then we break for the summer for July and August.
Okay. That's it, I think.
Now, what I would request that you do is keep your folks at the school system, and particularly with the cross-country team, ready to, we're just about there as far as the trail is concerned. So what we'd like to do is once we get the trail complete, maybe we can have a little just opening ceremony. That would be nice to have, and get the cross-country team involved and encourage them to help us take care of that area.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, there being no audience here tonight, we can dispense with the public comments. And as far as project status is concerned, the big thing we have going this weekend is the Dump the Junk program. Dan, you want to give us an update?
We've got quite a few volunteers. In fact, we could use a couple more young students from the area. It starts at 9 a.m. and it'll run to 4 p.m. this coming Saturday, May 11th. I've got a little surprise for all those volunteers. We are very fortunate to have, and this is going to be a surprise to the committee, Hungry Howie's is going to donate some large pizzas to us for the volunteers. And I spoke with Kroger today, and they're going to also help out with some fresh drinks, some water, and some sodas. So come on out, dump your junk, and remember, you got to bring your Grozeal ID. That's it.
So we're all set and we're ready to rock and roll, right?
We're ready to go.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you very much.
Cliff?
Any comments or questions?
Yeah, Jack and I will volunteer where needed.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Where needed. Can you let me know now? Or?
Absolutely. After the meeting, I'll tell you what we can do.
Okay.
I'd also ask to remind the residents what we do not accept, which would be paints, tires, electronic devices, and Dan, anything else you can think of?
We will not be doing any shredding. I heard that Trenton is offering something this weekend. I can't elaborate on that. You might want to check with the Recreation Department. It's going to be held at the Kennedy Center. Remember, be patient. We expect a big turnout.
Okay. Did you say this? I was talking here where I should have been listening. Did you say what happened? Electronics?
No electronics, no paint, no hazardous materials, no propane tanks. It's all posted on Grozeal now.
Okay.
And I believe they have it on the TV station also.
Okay, wonderful.
Come on out and dump your junk.
Thank you. Okay, the nature guide.
We have somebody from the audience now. Hello, Rebecca.
We'll come back to you in a minute, okay? We went through the public comments, but we can come back to that. As far as the nature guide, we met with Allegra Printing, and I believe it was it Tuesday, I believe, or Monday or Tuesday? Monday of this week. And we reviewed with them all the information required for them to prepare a formal draft of the new open space guide. And when that's available, we'll receive a copy and then we'll review it as a group. And then go ahead and if there's any changes to be made, we can make them. There'll be very minor changes, I anticipate, and then we're ready to go.
When you say as a group, did you mean the three of us?
Yes.
Or everybody?
Well, we'll look at it first,
Yes.
okay? And then if we want a group to take a look at it, just to say this is what it's going to look like, and then we'll run with it. Yes, Pam?
Will the ferry trail be included?
Yes.
Good.
How about the bike trail?
Yes.
Everything's included.
Yes.
What color is that going to be in?
I don't know, but it'll be there.
That's a good answer.
Yeah, we're included. It's going to the map may seem a little busy, but it'll have on that map everything you wanted to know, but we're afraid to ask. Okay, so it's going to be complete.
Okay.
Any other questions? Once we do get copies run off, we're going to make copies available to all the new residents per our regular program, and then copies will be available at Kroger's. It seems as though Kroger's is a focal point for that type of information. They're eager to have the new guide, so I think they'll be selling like hotcakes. The price is unbelievable. It's free of charge. Okay. The trail extension for the ferry trail, Carl, you told it to be about 3 weeks before.
We expect to have a closing within the next 3 weeks.
3 weeks, okay. Now, once we have the closing, we will start construction of that trail.
I will call you and we will start moving on that as we can. I would note that it is rather wet back there right now, though.
It is, and that's what's good. I've talked to Tom from TNT, and it's a mess back there right now. Bert did have a suggestion. She noticed that there are some wildflowers that are in that area, and she would like to have somebody go in there and maybe remove some of the wildflowers, put them in a little container, and then replant them after the trail is installed. So that can be done.
That's a good idea.
Yeah. Now that'll be done after approval is given.
Correct.
Okay?
Correct. We're not going to do anything until we have a closing.
Absolutely, absolutely. What I'm saying is before Tom starts digging, we'll be removing some of those flowers.
I'd hate to have him arrested for trespassing.
Absolutely. Okay.
Go on the action
Any
items. Let's hear what Rebecca has to say. I believe you're going to talk about Bike to School Day tomorrow.
Okay.
That'd be great.
Okay, Rebecca, just come up and introduce yourself. And
Hello, I'm
address.
Rebecca Cogg. I'm on Stout, if is that information needed too.
Okay.
And yes, Bike to School Day is tomorrow, so everyone who's driving in the morning should be extra careful. Highly recommended to stop if you see bikers waiting to cross at crosswalks. And bike with your kid if you have a kid going to school. Enjoy it. But actually, what I wanted to talk about with you guys, first of all, I wanted to thank you for all the work that you do. I love the open spaces. I live on Stout, so I like the path that we have from Stout to Park Lane. And I noticed that we used to call them widowmakers. There's a tree that's half ready to fall across the path. There, it's high enough up that you can get underneath it, but every time we go under there, I tell my kids run, because it's a big tree. So if it were to fall,
What trail are we talking about now?
the one that goes at the road end of Park Lane. So if you're at the school
Yes.
and you go south, Park Lane ends,
Okay.
and there's a
tree that's fallen across.
tree that's
that unofficial trail.
partly fallen.
We'll have that
across.
removed.
And is that trail unofficial or?
Well, it is not part of our trail system. There was a long story behind that. But what we said, if there is an unofficial trail, okay, and if there's a tree or any other obstruction on a trail of that kind, we will have it removed. So we'll take care of it.
Awesome.
Post haste.
Will that trail be included on this nature guide that you've been discussing?
it will
No, because
not
it's
be.
unofficial.
It will not.
Okay. And then my main question and thought was when I start looking about my daughter going to middle school next year, there is no way for her to bike to middle school without going on East River. Biking on East River with the condition of the road and the traffic that is there at the school morning is putting your life in danger.
Mm-hmm.
And so I started looking at, is there any other option other than for her, from where we live, she could go all the way down to Church, cross to the bike path, come all the way south to the high school, and go through
So
the
where was
pathway
she
to the high
going
school.
from to the
But-
high school?
From our house on Stout. If I'm looking at her trying to bike to the middle school, that was the only route that I could see for her to take, which
Why can't you use the ferry trail?
then if she does the ferry trail, she has to bike along Ferry, which has no shoulder. And then she still has to go East River for a little bit.
Right, as of right now, I don't have all the maps in front of me. I don't see, and you would want her to go directly from your house to the high school,
That's the only thing that I could see.
to the middle school?
Well, yeah, she's aiming for the middle school, but there is a pathway between the high school and middle school. And so the ferry road would be an option. I have a little map here. I don't know if this.
I don't know whether we can arrange to put it.
I live on Ferry near Park Lane, and when I leave for work around 7, between 7 and 7:30, I would not recommend anybody, pedestrian or bicyclist, to do that. There is a lot of traffic, and I'm not just suggesting these are young adults that are driving 16, 17, and 18. There is a lot of traffic there. I do not like driving on Ferry at that time of morning, and I most certainly would not allow our daughters at any age, and they're in their 20s now, to even consider doing it. I wholeheartedly encourage you to take her to school or a bus or something. It's not safe from what I've seen on Gray's Drive. It's not safe on Park Lane. It is certainly not safe on Ferry, and that's a good half mile between Park Lane and Meridian, where the bike trail would allow her to access, or if she were even to go all the way up there. I tried to avoid that, either leaving earlier or later if possible, but please, for her sake, I'd find an alternative, just as one parent to another.
Yeah, and I guess it feels like the way our town is set up, for a whole school to have no way for a student to get to it themselves seems wrong. And this has been a worry of mine, ever since my kids were little, but now I have a child in middle school. And so I was just looking at options. I know the bike path has in the past kind of looked at East River, and the cost of that is exorbitant, putting a bike path on East River. But we have, I don't know if it's a road end or if it's an open space, where Park Lane would be. I guess, is that Wayne County owned, or is that open space? One of my thoughts
Are you talking
was,
from going from the end of Park Lane, just as it goes south, just past Sacred Heart Church?
Well, Sacred Heart is so Sacred Heart is up here. You've got that dirt road, then you've got the school,
Sacred Heart Church.
You've got the unofficial path, which is that one from A to B marked here.
Right, okay.
And then you've got all the way until Park Lane starts again. And the middle school is right in here. So this was a just idea that I wanted to come and toss out and see who owned this land, and what would be a step if I wanted to try to start thinking about this, of putting a path through that land to the back of the middle school. All the road, there's Ferry. There's the middle school, sorry. So there's Ferry, and this road end space, whatever that is, could go right to the back of the middle school and avoid all traffic.
If memory serves, I believe that area from point B down is open space, I believe, without looking at the map.
It is. There's approximately 49 and a half, almost 50 acres of open space that runs from the canal to the back of the homes on East River. Those are the old French-style ribbon strip homes. I believe they go back about 700, 800 feet from East River. And between the backyards to the canal, and is just south of the homes on the south side of Island to the homes that are on the north side of Ferry, is township open space, and that's the part of the trail we've been talking about connecting from Gage to Ferry. The original, or the old trail, an informal trail, ran from Gage to Lowry, and that has since been reclaimed by the owners with the 2 new homes that are there, and the property that we were talking about tonight before you came, as well as for the last several meetings, is the Tittle property, which will allow a trail connection for pedestrians between Gage and Ferry Road again.
Right.
And then when you take Ferry East to Park Lane, then you can go over to the high school, and then there's a path between the high school and the middle school that works very well. Or if you were to continue east on Ferry, you would have 3 houses, probably about 400 feet between Ferry and the entrance to the middle school. Again, that's a very
Biking on
dangerous
Ferry,
area because
yeah.
of all of the traffic where parents are dropping off their children to the middle school. And again, I avoid that like the plague. It is very dangerous. But what we're talking about tonight and have been is opening a reconnect between Gage and Ferry, and that'll be the Tittle property. That's probably about a quarter of a mile east of the canal. So that's the only way. I will note that when Mr. Jaster and I were on the BPAC public meeting discussing a bike extension of the bike path from Meridian to the county bridge, the estimates that came in were anywhere between 1.8 and 2.2 million, I think, Dan, was the numbers that come in. Incredibly expensive. But one of the reasons we wanted to purchase the Tittle property, if I can refer to it as that, was so that we would then have a path, at least for pedestrians, that would allow us the same privileges as the people on the west side of the Meridian have, and that, or west side of the canal, and that is a nice bike path. But on the east side of the canal, there was no continuous connection. That was lost with Tittle, and there is really nothing for bicycles. And when we start looking at $1.5 million, $2 million a mile, that's real money. And that's something that we just don't have any plans for at this point. Just looking at the figure going from Meridian to the county bridge was astronomical.
What is the process for getting a new open space official path? Yeah.
Well, you would come before the committee and make your petition known and the reasons, and we would take a look at it. Okay?
And then it becomes
to
wood
Carl's,
chipped
to
every
Carl's
year?
point is that I think what you're talking about is putting a path from B to the Grosse Ile schools. Is that correct?
Yes.
That would run, I would say that would run at least, I don't know how much it would cost. It depends on what you have to go through. But how many people would use it? We'd have 2 paths going from the north end of the property to the south end. The one that we have, we're going to be putting in, it's going to be under construction very soon. It's on the west side, as Carl has indicated, and where you would want is another one going on the east side.
Talking about the Tittle, the Gage to Ferry.
Right. Where
Right.
Park Lane ends at Ferry, if you are proceeding north on Park Lane from Grosse Ile Parkway, you pass across and certainly Parkway, and then Macomb Street, and then Grays, and then you come to Ferry. Park Lane dead ends at Ferry. It is not platted. It is not plotted in any way, shape, or form to continue north to Island, and then from Island through to where you live on Stout. There is no plan for that. The property is not even dedicated. It is, with the exception of the open space, which is a strip that starts about 800 miles north of Ferry and probably 800 feet north of Ferry. I'll get you on a different continent in a minute. But it's roughly 798 to 800 feet north of the center of Ferry Road. You then come to 50 acres, which is a rectangle that runs generally east-west. Then you come to the property on Island, and then, again, the connector to Stout is not there, and then from Stout north to Park Lane, I think you have a subdivision there as well. And so that is generally private property, and there is no improvement that I'm aware of, and I've lived on Ferry for 61 years now. There's no improvement from Park Lane by the Catholic Church, if you will, all the way to Park Lane and Ferry. That's all private, with the exception of the open space.
So any students that want to try to bike to the middle school from the north, basically they're recommended to go around to the bike path on Meridian and then go up Macomb on the sidewalk to the high school?
The path is, I was a student at up there many years ago. The problem is, again, the condition of all of the roads. If you look at Church Road is narrow. The last millage looked at expanding the road and improving it. Unfortunately, with the heavy traffic and with the bus traffic, that road is in pretty bad shape. So your students that live near Park Lane and Church, as an example, are going to have to probably travel either a couple of hundred yards to the east to get on the East River, which is a terribly unsafe road, or they're going to have to ride their bikes probably a half a mile, depending upon where they live, to Thoroughfare. And again, Church Road is, in my opinion, an unacceptably dangerous ride for any age group to do that, certainly with all of the traffic, but they would then have to ride all the way to Thoroughfare, take the gravel road Thoroughfare south to where it intersects with Meridian by West Shore Golf and Country Club, and then take the bike path down to Ferry, which is dangerous, or go all the way down to Gray's Drive, which is probably good until you get to the high school, or take the sidewalks on Macomb Street to get you to Gray's Drive or someplace that you feel comfortable where you can turn. But again, East River is a terminus, and that's a terrible. My feeling is that there is no good solution for any of this, absent spending a lot of money and generating public support for a bike path that would do on the east side what the bike path does on the west side of the canal. I'm very uncomfortable as a parent recommending anything to you. And it's not an easy question. When Dan and I sat in at the bike path BPAC commission meeting, and they were exploring expanding in a shoulder along Parkway. One of the residents there, who happens to be a local police officer, advised us that he clocked somebody doing 82 miles an hour down Parkway. And
yeah,
totally unacceptable. So when I caution you, it simply is one parent to another, and the most important thing that we will ever have in our lives will be our children. And I wouldn't want my spouse or adult children to use any of those paths. And I wished I had a better alternative for you or for your child. But I'm very uncomfortable with all of that. And there's a lot of risk involved with that. And I feel for you. I enjoyed walking to school when I was a kid. My parents enjoyed having me leave the house early so I could walk to school as a kid.
Cliff, I have a comment.
Is there any other comment? Pam?
I've had experience with, because we hosted 2 Chinese daughters for the school year, and when she'd miss the bus, she would walk Gray's Drive because it has a sidewalk. And is it a daughter, could hit the bike path on Meridian, and then Gray's Drive, she could get to the high school, and then there's a pathway to the middle school.
The pathway between the high school and middle school is very nice.
Yes.
The cross-country team uses it, and I will say for East River, like, my coach has never let us run on East River, like, on very, very rare occasions, and that's after school when there isn't very much traffic around, like, 4 or 3. Like, I know for me, I'm a high school student. I drive myself to school every morning. Every time I see a kid biking by that middle school, it worries me to death. And I've seen someone almost get hit, and it was very scary. So Yeah.
It's not only the traffic with the potholes. There's
Yes.
no way to ride on the side of the road unless you go through the grass, and it's very swampy and hard to bike if you're in the grass right now.
Okay.
But thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Rebecca.
I'll get her last name. Okay, going back, one of the things we are going to be looking at, and Dan, between you and Bert, this is looking down the road a piece, is outline a possible trail extension in Manchester Woods, and we talked about that
Yep.
before. So that's what's one of the things is, and there's going to be some issues there that we have to look at in terms of proximity of adjacent homes and so forth.
Are you referring to Meridian Woods?
Yeah, I think we're.
Yes, it was, one of the residents brought up changing the name to Manchester Woods. I think it was the last meeting or the meeting before.
Well, it was called Manchester Woods and has been for some time, and somebody said, well, maybe we should call it Meridian's Woods. And I believe at the last minutes said we were going to leave it at Manchester, did we not?
No,
Or are we going to change it to
change
Meridian?
it to Meridian, yes. It's in the minutes.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Yep.
I stand corrected if it's,
Meridian Woods becomes official.
Yes.
okay. All right, we'll call it Meridian Woods then. Okay. That takes care of that item.
Yeah, as soon as the property dries out, we decided that we would walk it.
Okay. Just as a note, as a next item, and just as a notation, is that we're still one member short, and so we're actively looking for new members to come for potential candidates to come forward and submit their names to the township administrator for possible inclusion for the Open Space Committee. So if there's anybody out there that's interested in becoming an Open Space member, just submit your application to the Township Manager's office, and then we'll be taking a look at it and reviewing candidates. The next item is, I think we're going to have to start thinking about a millage proposal for open space maintenance. We have about enough money in there for about 3 more years. So, Carl, how long does it take us to get from where we are right now to having an approved millage on the books?
The township agenda coming for May 13th has language that is expected to be adopted for a millage for both police and fire. It's 2 separate millages, and those are expected to be on the ballot this year, assuming that the ballot language is acceptable. So you would want to have that language in place. I'm going to suggest 3 months ahead of time so that you can go ahead and have a publicity education to explain to the public why you need a maintenance millage, what the monies would be used for. I believe very strongly that when the public understands, the voters understand what a millage involves, what a millage will produce, what a millage will provide for, that is very, very important and frankly successful when everybody's on the same page. Your increments on that, right now a 1/10 of a mil would be expected to raise about $60,000 per year.
That would be more than sufficient. That would be sufficient.
I think that would probably be very, very acceptable amount in terms of use, whether or not the public would vote for it. Again, educate, educate, educate. Tell them what you want the millage for and what you're going to do with the money.
So we should start like now with our publicity campaign for that, or not?
Well, I think
or should
that's
we wait a year?
I think if you're looking at 3 years before you're into the funds, I would probably start, when you start to run out of funds, I would be looking at it 2 years from now. I don't like to ask for millages, personally. I don't like to ask for millages when you still have money that is not used. To me, a millage is a sacred trust. you only purchase properties or maintain properties when you don't have the funds for it. You ask the public
So
then to come
we
forward.
should start in 2021
That's what I would recommend.
with our publicity is saying, look, we have a year left, and we were asking for 1 mil, and it would cost each homeowner X many dollars, so on and so forth and such like, right?
Well, I think we'd have to take a look in 2 years as to what the needs are and what the amount is. Again, a tenth of a mill raises $60,000 in revenue, and a mill would be $600,000, and that is a huge undertaking, and that's certainly not something you could justify for maintenance.
It would certainly be no more, in my mind, I'm just giving my own personal opinion, no more than a tenth of a mill. Keep in mind that we're going to have another trail that we're going to have to maintain, the Ferry Trail. We're going to have, in other words, we got 4 trails now. We got the Manchester, or the Meridian Trail. We have the Centennial Farm Trail. We have the Playscape Trail. We also have the trail at the north end of the island,
Correct.
Wildlife Sanctuary.
Correct.
So those are 4 trails, and each trail, I estimate, takes, after it's constructed, requires about $3,000 to $4,000 per year to properly maintain. Okay, so you're talking between $12,000 and $16,000 a year just to maintain the trails, plus the additional monies that's required for removing dead trees and so on and so forth.
And that's why I'm comfortable waiting until 2021 before we ask for that. We will certainly have a better idea.
Okay.
And when we look at the placement of the trail between Gage and Ferry, trying to keep it on the higher ground, that will be less maintenance because of the flooding and all of the mud and the destruction or impact on the trail with that.
What I'd like to do then is just put a tickler in our minutes to say by the late part of 2020 or 2021, we start with our campaign.
Well, and I think when we look at our annual budget, when we do the review in January and February of each year, we'll have a better idea next year what our maintenance costs will be for the Meridian Trail, as it's going to be known as well as what's the cost of the Ferry Gage Trail and the other trails, and we should be able to budget accordingly and have a better idea. I just don't want to go to the voters and say we want money because without being
we'll do our due diligence on it.
Good.
In other words, we'll have our act together. We'll indicate what we can do and what we can't do. But I would like to put a date whereby by the end of, for the 2021 period, we have already started the process to put a millage request before the voters.
I think that would
I want to do it
wise.
before we get into a panic.
That would be wise.
Okay, all right. Will
Cliff,
do.
could I make a comment?
Yes, just a minute. Go ahead.
It's a renewal, and aren't they
No,
easier?
there is no renewal. There
Well-
is no millage collected for open space maintenance.
But in
It's
the
been for 12 years.
yeah, well, it's not like it's a brand new
Yeah,
millage.
it is a brand new millage.
But
Because the millage has expired, Pam.
Yeah, but they voted on it before.
Yeah, but but the millage elapsed.
Yeah,
Not collecting it. It's not even on the books anymore. Yeah.
but I have a feeling that the public would be more receptive if we've had it before and we want to continue it rather than a brand new
Well, the way it
idea.
would have to, in my mind, the way it would have to be orchestrated is that the millage, the open space maintenance millage that was assessed and collected elapsed, I would say, around 2010, for sake of argument. So it's off the books. So what we want to do is we would want to reinstate. It's not a renewal of an existing millage. We'd have to reinstate the millage that we let lapse in 2010 and reinstate it at a certain amount. Okay?
I would,
Dan?
yeah.
Okay.
I think the public would be receptive.
I think it all depends on how it's orchestrated.
I think so, and you also would look at it for a brief term. You're not going to be looking at a 10-year millage or anything like that. You might look at something for several years to recharge the fund and then use that for maintenance, because, again,
Yeah, it all
we're
depends.
several years down the...
There's two options, I think, once you get the millage approved, depending on how the cash flow is, you decide whether you really want to. You have the millage approved, but you may decide we're not going to assess it this year.
Correct.
We can always do that.
Correct.
Okay.
During the hard times that we had 10 years ago, the fire chief and the fire department, the fire commission made a recommendation not to assess for 1 year because of the amount of hardship on the township,
Sure.
the individual homeowners, and they decided not to assess for 1 year. And that's just good stewardship.
Good. Okay. Is there anything else? I want to start down this end. Carl, do you have any other comments that you want to make?
No, nothing. Just again, please, if everybody would be careful out there tomorrow with Bike to School Day. We're going to have more than the usual number of children riding their bikes, and I'd love to be able to report a month from now that it was successful, safe, everybody had a good time, and maybe the rain will hold off until 9 or 9:30 a.m. Let's hope for dry weather and safe children.
Absolutely. Linda, anything?
Nothing else that I can think of.
Dan?
I also second to what Carl said. Be careful out on the roads tomorrow. Also Saturday, bring your junk. Here's your opportunity to get rid of all those treasures that you may not want, but somebody else may.
I have nothing.
I have nothing.
John?
I'm good.
I'm blank.
Mr. Chairman, I have one other thing. In all the time that I've been on the police commission, when we have somebody that looks to retire from the department, we make a point of having them find somebody to replace them that does as good a job, and I think Linda needs to do the same thing. She has been wonderful to work with. I don't think we should let her go until she has somebody that can come in and handle the job the way that she has, and
Well,
it has been a pleasure working with her.
She may not realize it, but there's this signature is on a sheet of paper that says she can't leave unless we have a replacement. But all kidding aside, Linda, it's been a pleasure working with you. Thank you so much for volunteering. And maybe between now and the next meeting, if you can get somebody to replace you and bring them to the next meeting, and you can introduce them to us.
That's definitely what I'm hoping to do, is to find someone. Emily and I were talking about it, and I think that we decided who we're going to have replace me, but I have to talk to her and make sure.
Sure. But she can't be a graduating senior this year.
No. But yeah, I've had a great time coming to the meetings, and I appreciate everything. If I weren't going to Indiana next year, I would still come.
You're going
but
to Indiana?
Yes, I'm going to IUPUI. It's a combination of Indiana University and Purdue University.
Oh, great. Wonderful. Well, congratulations, and thank you for your service. We
Thank you.
appreciate it. Okay. Is there anything else? If not, we...
Make a motion.
I was just going to mention that Kyle had to leave. He left a note that he had an appointment at 7:45, so he had to leave.
Oh, one more thing. Did you give a copy of your report to John?
No.
Okay. I asked all the liaisons to make it easier for John to take minutes, is if when you give your report, just give John a copy of your report so that he can include it in the minutes without having to feverishly write the reports. And if you could do a favor for me and get a hold of Kyle and ask him to do that also. Here comes the notes.
All right.
Circled it.
Oh, that's easy to read.
Okay. All right, anything else? Entertain a motion?
I make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Meeting adjourned. Thank you for coming.